So for this video, I am going to show you some fun things that you can do with isopropyl alcohol. So basically your standard rubbing alcohol is a form of isopropyl alcohol. What I'm using here is 91% isopropyl alcohol, which is a little bit stronger than the rubbing alcohol you buy in the grocery store. That's usually 70%. That might work for some of these things I'm going to show you. There's also 99% alcohol, which will definitely work. You have to order that online. But this 91% isopropyl alcohol you can buy in a grocery store and a drugstore. So you can get it anywhere. It's cheap. It's fun to have it in the studio. I'm going to show you some things you can do with it using permanent markers and high flow acrylics. So usually it's used for medical reasons. It's an antiseptic used for cuts and stuff like that. So it's always good to have this around your studio anyway, just in case something happens. So I'm going to just quick show you. I'm working here on canvas board. This is a type of, it's a primed surface, but the technique also works really well on paper. So here's an example of a portrait I did really quick using the technique I'm about to show you. And you can see some of the marker bled through the back of the paper. So since paper is porous, you do get a slightly different effect with it, but it's fun, and I think it's fun to experiment with different substrates. So it's up to you what you want to try. Other things you might notice about this, might be hard to see, but here you might see some breaking up where the paint has broken up a little bit. That happens as a result of this technique that I'm going to show you. So again, this is combining drawing and painting. So I'm going to just quickly show you here what happens. I'm going to take this big Sharpie marker I have, and maybe I'll just draw my hand right now. I'm drawing this on my canvas board. I'm doing a kind of contour drawing here. I'm not getting into shading or anything like that. Just having fun with this. Let's do the cuff. Okay, so now I'm going to take my alcohol and a small brush, and I'm going to brush this onto this drawing. And what you'll see is the marker is bleeding. So this is, I could just use this technique now and blend all of this and do some fun things with it. Since I'm working on a primed surface, it's just staying on the top of the surface. If I was working on paper, this would be absorbing into the fibers a little bit more. You can also do something where you can take a spray adapter, put that on your alcohol bottle, and spray your piece. So you see how everything's bleeding here. This technique also works with regular ballpoint pen and other permanent markers. So maybe I'll outline this drip here. Just for fun. And now if I spray this, it should blend a little bit as well. So you can probably see that blending. So now while this is wet, if I paint with acrylics on top of it, it causes them to coagulate in a way. So you might see how the alcohol is dried fairly quickly. So the effect can only occur if the alcohol is wet. Since isopropyl alcohol is actually less dense than water, so it dries really fast. So I might spray this again so you can see the effect that I'm going for here. You see how it's sort of breaking up on the surface of my page? And that is because the alcohol repels it. So something fun that you can do with this technique I want to take some blue here. I'm going to thin it down and just wipe that or paint that onto this. And while that paint is still wet, I'm going to take my alcohol and just drop it right on there. And you see how it breaks it up. Hopefully you can see that. So that's a fun thing you can do, a fun effect that you can get with this technique. Now you want to not disturb it when that happens. If you want to preserve this texture, just leave it alone. Don't overwork it. You notice I'm working flat right now because if I tilt this, everything's going to spill. But yeah, just try this out at home. Try getting some different permanent markers. Even try this with ballpoint pen. I don't have one right now on hand. This is a yellow marker here. And you can really play around with layering these things. But just remember that once the alcohol dries, you can't really get that effect where things sort of break up. So I'm going to take some sap green right now and paint into this so you see what I'm talking about. See how that breaks up? I love that effect. It's a fun kind of watercolory effect. You can also just take your alcohol and just spray it right on your white canvas and play around with painting on top of that. Not much really happened here. But there is neat things that happen when you layer. You see, if I use a lot of water, it kind of breaks up. So just do an experiment where you're really playing around with this. Don't get too attached to your subject matter. You just want to experiment with the materials a little bit here. See what they're capable of doing. And hopefully you won't be working in this kind of awkward way that I'm doing here. You see how... So when you buy alcohol ink in the store, basically what that is this isopropyl alcohol with with permanent marker ink. So to make your own alcohol inks, you could take the nibs out of these markers and soak them in that. And then you get your own pigmented inks. And maybe I'll demo that at some point in the future. But yeah. I went ahead and painted over all my stuff. But yeah, so you see this neat kind of blended effect that comes from spraying the 91% rubbing alcohol on your canvas while you're painting. So have fun with that process, and we'll see you next time. Bye.